Hi, I'm John Atack.
I'm Sam Atack.
And we're going to talk about The Social Dilemma, which is a Netflix documentary, one of a number of recent documentaries about the collection of big data and manipulation of people through the use of this data. I was told something alarming by your brother last week. I had bought a saute pan with a lid. It was rather nice. Ceramic lining. I use ceramic. We don't use any of the things that might have nasty things like what's come since C8 in Teflon, whatever poison they're putting into them. So we use ceramic, which is safe. Ceramic lining, recommend it. And I was replacing some that have lasted quite a long time. And I bought one, and I was very happy. I got it for £18.99. And 2 days later, decided I'd replace my other frying pan with one of these lovely saute pans. They're a bit deeper, so they're better. And I was surprised to find that it was £4 more, which is about $5 in the US. And so I sort of thought, well, it's probably not going to go down in price, and it might go up to the kind of £40 mark where many of the others were. I'm very satisfied, steel, aluminium base, nice thick base, nice lid, glass lid. So I bought it anyway. And I was talking with your brother Ben, who knows a lot about computers. He has a master's degree in the subject and did, I think, about a year working on apps, and he's qualified as a networking engineer. Oh, all sorts of, what a show off. And he said, that Amazon have this thing that because they know your IP address, the actual personal number of your computer, they can see that you've bought this before and they'll put the price up. And he said he's actually sat there with a friend and on their two computers checked a price on Amazon and had different prices at the same moment. Now that is data manipulation.
Yeah.
And it cost me £4 and I'd like my money back, please.
So you need 2 accounts, Amazon accounts.
At least 2, preferably 9,000.
Yeah.
I'm going to, right at the start, recommend the use of Privacy Badger. If you use the Chrome browser, then you can use an add-on, an extension that's called Privacy Badger, which actually will restrict tremendously the amount of tracking of your likes and dislikes of the things you buy, all of these things. I mean, I was amazed to find that Amazon not only know what you've bought from them, they know which page you came from, and they know which page you go to from there. And they can actually, with their cookies, get into all sorts. But it's not just them. There are thousands of people manipulating us through the internet. And if George Orwell were alive, what would he say?
Beware, Big Brother.
Yeah. And Little Sister.
And Little Sister.
Alexa, Siri, Google Assistant. That's not much of a name, is it? At least Siri's a porn star, as well as doing all that stuff.
And you can switch your voice to Australian.
Australian. Hello there, mate. I can do that. I could get a job as a voice assistant.
Yeah.
That'd be brilliant. I could switch the lights off and on.
I mean, your Facebook account, it was selling it was giving your data to 25 countries. And I checked your privacy settings. So I switched that off. It wasn't very nice.
Not that I ever do anything on Facebook anyway, but
I do stuff on Facebook.
Yeah.
Your Facebook.
Somebody has to, I suppose. Yeah. Social dilemma. If you're not paying for the product, you are the product.
Nice.
That's the basic motto here. In this documentary, which is a Netflix documentary, former executives and employees of Google, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram talk about how they sat about working out how to manipulate people, how to get money from selling your data. Now, we will elsewhere talk about The Great Hack, which is a documentary about Cambridge Analytica and their interference with elections throughout the world from at least 1994 onwards, and the use of, big data. But you'll hear from the people who actually designed the like button for Facebook, which is one of the most insidious ways of collecting information about you. There are about 40,000 companies according to Brittany Kaiser, who was the whistleblower from Cambridge Analytica. 40,000 companies who are buying these data sets about people. And it was said when Cambridge Analytica dived under, presumably having sold or moved its data to somewhere else, they got just the most incredible amount of information they had. They were able to put forward 5,000 pieces of information, or data points as they call them, on everybody over 18 in the United States of America by gathering friends' information, all sorts of things.
What they were buying from their credit card companies.
Experian, the credit card checker, shares its data. The banks are allowed to share your data if you don't look at the terms and conditions carefully. An academic called Shoshana Zuboff says that we should be aware that these are the richest companies in the history of humanity, these companies like Google and Facebook, Amazon. It was interesting seeing that many of the people contributing to this were still quite pleased with themselves about how clever they'd been and what they'd done, while talking about having kind of wrecked the future for humanity.
Yes. We realised we were exploiting behavioural psychology, making it work like a casino. But we were very optimistic about it at the time.
And it's an almost Asperger's disconnect that you'll find sometimes in former members of destructive cults. I remember I was in Los Angeles many, many years ago, and the former head of Scientology's legal department, who I won't name for reasons of his personal privacy, but he was very disappointed. He said, I got to the point where the lawyer Michael Flynn, who's really the guy that brought Scientology down, there are a lot of people involved, but Flynn's essential to what happened. I had something to do with it, I suppose. But the Clearwater hearings with him, he was Jerry Armstrong's lawyer in the first case, and he had, I think it was 25 or so cases against Scientology. And this chap he'd got a deal where Flynn would settle all of the cases for $2 million. And in walked Norman Starkey, who's this famous Scientologist who'd been with Hubbard right through the beginnings of his Sea Organization in the Mediterranean in the late 60s. And he said something like, "There's going to be blood." And there was blood. They ended up paying Flynn $5 million instead of $2 million, and Flynn and his clients, and losing so much ground publicly and shredding much of their reputation. But I was sat there, I looked at him and said, I knew the guy well, he was a lovely guy. I said to him, hear what you're saying. What you're suggesting is that Scientology would still be going if only, this deal had been... And it's the person becoming involved in what they did in their part of the puzzle.
Yeah. I can't remember. Wild Wild Country, that documentary, a lot of the ex-members...
About the Rajneeshis.
Yeah, about the Rajneeshis. When they were thinking back to about their time in the Rajneeshis, they seemed to almost switch into a different mode, that they were still proud of their achievements.
Yeah, and because in that documentary you only see the executives, you don't see the people who were working 19 hours a day for them, and having their lives destroyed. There's this... You're living in this illusory world. I mean, the other comparison would be with weapons designers who are, who worked on making the atomic bomb or the hydrogen bomb, neutron bomb, and they're wow, we cracked all of these problems. We solved all of these problems. You're going, yeah, you killed all of these people. And I fear that big tech has thrown us into the same place. So, for example, the director of monetization at Facebook, Tim Kendall, speaks, and he helped to develop the advertising models that basically have undermined traditional news media and allowed fake news to spread throughout the world, and created situations for companies like Cambridge Analytica where they could destroy democracy. The Trinidad and Tobago election, where the idea was that on one side you'd have Afro-Caribbean voters, and on the other side you'd have Indian Caribbean voters.
The Do So campaign.
And the Do So campaign was to persuade young blacks not to vote, to persuade them that it was not cool to vote. So that is a direct, and the Indian candidates won, but that's a direct assault on democracy. But where is the sense of responsibility? These guys, and they've been satirised online, they're kind of going, oh yeah, we did terrible things, but by the time I was 27, I was a billionaire, so I'm okay now. And I give £5 a week to the World Wildlife Fund, so I'm a good person.
And the other thing it talks about is online radicalization, which is something you're writing about.
Yeah, and something that I've worked around themes of radicalisation since before 9/11, because I realised that indoctrination into what people call cults, but into destructive, fanatical, authoritarian, extremist sects, that it's the same. And if you look at the ISIS recruitment manual, it's very recognisable as something that a Scientologist or a Mooney would use to do recruiting of people. And there are all of these biases, all of these ways of dealing with people. I mean, a lot of the problems that we're facing come from a group of scientists working at Cambridge University who were working on behavioural data. And they went, hey, we can sell this. And thus Cambridge Analytica came into being as a part of Strategic Communications Laboratories, SCL, which is, they're able to ditch Cambridge Analytica, but I think they still exist. They had aggregate IQ working on. And of course, you can shift the data to a country like, say, Vietnam, that has no agreements on data protection whatsoever. So the 87 million Facebook accounts that were fundamentally hacked because Facebook was not responsible about the security of data, that those accounts that were hacked and then sold to lots of people, they're still there.
Facebook was making it so it was, if you used an app like Candy Crush, you would give permission for your friends' data to be harvested as well. So a lot of it was, what would you call it, technically legal?
Well, you can't sign a contract that gives, where you give rights to your friends' information.
Yeah, absolutely. That's ridiculous.
And of course, it's in the terms and conditions. And, the pages and pages of stuff, which I would say is actually they're questionable contracts. A contract should have a front end that explains all of the aspects of it, rather than getting your lawyers to make a 100-page contract that nobody's going to read. Who actually does read those things? So they're unfair contracts. There's also a fictional family in this thing, and this idea that one of the daughters in the family says, what about going through a meal without looking at the notifications on your smartphone?
It was a week or something like that.
Well, it starts just at locking them up during dinner, and the lockbox is broken open to get to the phone, and then you have the lad who, we don't want to spoil this too much, but who has a little bit of difficulty in not using his smartphone. I think, so Facebook, all of these things, they're founded on behavioural psychology. The founders of them sat down and said, how can we manipulate people and become incredibly rich? So they're highly ethical people with a real concern for humanity. There may be a certain irony in that statement. Do you think that was a bit ironic? What it makes me think of is this idea in Silicon Valley that the singularity will one day come about, that artificial intelligence will eventually create a singularity where all of the computers in the world have become this one wonderful living entity which will solve all of our problems. And I'd just like to point out that anybody that believes that is a half-wit. The idea that God will be created, this, if we're going to get philosophical about it, this teleological argument that somehow this will...
42.
Yeah, that there will be a machine, that the Earth is a machine that will calculate the answer to everything, which is, of course, 42. But you do have to know the question, which is, what is 7 times 9, I think.
Yeah, they get it a bit wrong.
Things went a bit wrong with the kind of Scrabble letters handing out to the primitive humans. So, social dilemma, there's nothing fantastically new about this, but wanted to give it a plug because it is worth reminding ourselves just how much our information is being used. So Brittany Kaiser's Own Your Own Data Foundation is worth looking at. Privacy International is worth looking at. And Install Privacy Badger. Don't use Google. Use DuckDuckGo. Don't use cloud apps if you don't want to share your data and give away your rights. Use Proton Mail instead of using a cloud service, because you are actually at the mercy of pirates and privateers who are stealing and plundering from you. Your privacy, your right to privacy, just so that you can have a free search engine, and you can use DuckDuckGo instead anyway, so who cares? Yeah. So thank you very much. I'm John Atack.
I'm Sam Atack.
And we will see you again soon, just as soon as we've plundered your data. Thank you. Hi, John here. Thanks for watching. We'd appreciate it very much if you would click like, as well as subscribe, and click the bell for notifications. Every dollar helps, and we welcome new patrons on Patreon, or you can make a one-off payment with any currency through PayPal. Thanks so much. I'd like my money back, please.